management, good physicians, you're going to keep the cost of care down versus in some areas where you get no intervention and the cost can be as much as $150,000 or more, where we can bring it down to 60 to 70,000 lifetime cost. I think the cost for someone on that's HIV positive on what we call prophylactic treatment to keep them from getting sick is still going to run them about $6,000 a year.
And so either the insurance companies or the government or somebody's going to have to, what about insurance? Let's talk about that, because I think that that's one of the areas that that we do have a lot of information in reference to how insurance companies are reacting to this disease. What are some of your experiences that you found?
Well, there is a tendency, I think, in this country to blame our health care crisis on the AIDS issue, but we've had the health care crisis before AIDS ever came along. Certainly AIDS has exacerbated that a bit. In my particular case, when I was put on Social Security disability, it made me eligible for Medicaid. And I was very fortunate because Medicaid paid most of my expenses. I would have gone back to work sooner had I been assured of having some insurance, but I wasn't. However, after being on Medicaid for 2 years, being on Social Security disability for 2 years, it automatically made me eligible for Medicare, even if I went back to work. So that played a big part in my decision to go back to work. I know several people who are in similar situations. They would go back to work if they had that safety net of insurance. But when you're talking $700 a month, and that's probably low, some people's medical bills probably run just for medicine as high as $1,200 a month. They won't go back to work. And so we need to do something, because if you look at the age group that this illness is affecting, it's affecting people in their most productive part of their lives. And we'll never balance a budget if we don't tap into those resources.
Very good. Ms. Wood, I think we've talked about various aspects of the disease. Let's talk about what we can expect in the future in terms of trying to find a cure for the disease. I think recently there was some formula that was an old formula that has been used. Why don't you give us some information about that? I think the thalidomide formula has proven to be quite effective. From your perspective, what do we have here?
What we really have is a virus, and we all know that viruses are the most difficult thing we have to treat. Bacteria are easier, other things are. And this virus mutates and changes quite often, and depending on how it enters your DNA, it's going to look a little different. So our challenge is going to always be in front of us. I think our best hope is that we can treat it as a chronic disease like diabetes is and some of those other diseases. A cure, I'm just not sure we're ever going to have that. And perhaps someday a vaccine, but the challenges of developing a vaccine for a virus that's changing a little bit is going to be just really, really difficult. My hat is off to people at Vanderbilt and the other research centers for all the excellent work they've done. And our prayers are that they will find something. But for today, I think the best thing we can do is try to figure out how we can best manage it and wait for them to discover something that will give us a way past this disease.
And of course, I would imagine, Mr. Dobbins, that would give you some comfort, but that also means that there has to be a spiritual aspect that you have to have in reference to this disease. Let's talk about that during the last few minutes that we have here today.
My case, again, is probably atypical. I was trained to be a minister professionally and actually worked as a minister for about 8 years, the last 2 of those years working primarily as a youth minister. And also counseling young people who had been put in jail or detention centers. And what I found was that I was able to help everyone else, but I couldn't help myself during that period of crisis in my life. After that year of silence and after disclosing to my family the nature of my illness and having them accept me, I was at that point in my life at 27 years of age able to begin developing self-esteem and self-respect and self-love. And so the basis of my spirituality started there. And so it's rather ironic that I was a minister for 8 years telling others about God And it's only been in the last 2 years dealing with a life-threatening condition that I really feel like I've come in contact with who God is for me. And it's interesting, I speak to lots of religious groups, and I speak to lots of students in public high schools and universities, and without exception, I get asked questions about my spirituality. And of course, I enjoy answering those because it's a very real part of my life.
Very good, Ms. Wood. We've got about a minute and a half before we wrap this up for the morning. Why don't you give us some final comments?
One comment I'd make about the spirituality very quickly is that we know that that's a real issue for our clients struggling, so we've added a spiritual person onto our staff to help people along their journey find that, just like Don could do.
Very good.
One of the things I would add, too, is that last year we had the first annual From All Walks of Life here in town, where there were about 5,000 people that came together on a Sunday to get out and walk and support this cause and make everyone understand it is our disease. We're going to do that again on October 10th, and so I would hope your viewers would mark their calendars now, call our office for walker kits, call to get involved and volunteer.
Very good. Let me thank you, Ms. Wood, and Mr. Dobbins, especially for the courage of coming by and giving us an opportunity to put a face on the numbers. We certainly appreciate that. Let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.